What's going on, ProGuides fam? I'm Kangas, and today we're going to try and answer the age-old question of which is more important, aim or game sense. And even before we get into the video, I think we can all agree that the answer is almost always that both are important. So ultimately our goal today is to just help explain the context of this constant debate and also provide some interesting arguments for each side that hopefully builds a better picture of the two most fundamental skills in Valorant. And if you ever want individual help with anything from player fundamentals to agent specifics to role mastery, come check us out on ProGuides.com, where our Radiant and Immortal level coaches are more than willing to help you out. But if that's not your style, we also have courses made by pros like Sentinels 10s and Team Liquid Scream that will teach you the fundamentals required to become the best, as well as how to master the Duelist class. So if any of that interests you, go check it out. Anyway, to begin today's discussion, we're first going to argue for the side that says aim is more important, and then after we cover that, we'll talk about game sense. One of the biggest factors that makes aim a crucial aspect of success in Valorant is that aim affects every single gunfight in the game. Whether you're shooting at a person swinging you, jumping at you, or even turned around from you, there's a level of aim that is required to consistently win those gunfights. For example, even if the enemy is turned away from you, if your aim is absolutely awful and you can't hit the floor if you wanted to, you might miss an enemy not even looking at you and just end up getting turned on. Meanwhile, the opposite can be said as well. If somebody misses you and you have godly aim, you can just spin around and kill them instantly. The idea is that every fight relies on some level of gunplay, and gunplay is of course facilitated with aim. Even in the crazy situations, if you have insane aim, you can still win. Another large talking point about why aim is the most important is that Valorant as a game is technically very simple. Plant the spike or eliminate the enemies. At the end of the day, your goal is to fight an enemy and shoot them. This is especially the case in lower ranks where higher level concepts aren't really as relevant. There's not as much team play or coordination happening, so most situations are just determined in a 1v1 duel that will rely on aim. Additionally, since you're much less likely to ever get outplayed, the goal for you as a player is to take a bunch of duels and out-aim your way to a victory. Conceptually, this makes a lot of sense and kinda builds on the point that aim is everywhere. In hectic situations, it's impossible to really predict every outcome, so having powerful aim is an amazing tool to adapt and make any fight a winnable one. And finally, another thing that people can often say is that aim is a skill that is well-defined and much easier to see improvement in. In the case of improving as a newer player, a lot of motivation comes from just seeing yourself grow in your mechanics and how you navigate a game of Valorant. Aim is definitely a large factor when you consider how there are so many resources to help improve your aim, and methods to master different elements of aim. Simply put, it's just one of the easiest things to improve in the start due to how well studied and almost absolute aim is. While game sense is contextual and different depending on the situation, having good aim can always help you. Now, before we continue into considering game sense, we got our question of the day. What is your favorite way to aim train? For me, anytime I'm going to go for a ranked grind, I always hop into deathmatch first and just try and go for as many headshots as I can. But let me know your answers in the comments down below. So now that we've covered some reasons why aim can be considered the most important aspect of the game, let's jump to the other side and talk about why game sense is the most important. And then after this, we'll go over the actual answer to the discussion. One of the biggest factors that game sense encompasses that makes it so mysterious yet respected is that game sense is what allows a player to outsmart an enemy. If you can just always catch your opponent with their head turned because you have a good flank, or you catch an opponent off guard by using good utility and just making smart decisions, you don't need good aim to win. Granted, you do still need to hit a shot on a blind enemy or one that's turned around, but the amount of aim necessary to cash in on an opportunity like this is very little. As a result, being able to outplay enemies through game sense is a big ticket to making life as easy as possible for you as a player. And in some cases, you might not even need aim. If you have great game sense, you can just tell your teammates to attack a site that's weak because you can read the enemy's setup. If you consider a world where every person has similar levels of aim, then the differentiator in what determines a team's win is going to be depending on which team played the smartest. And by smartest, I mean making the high percentage plays. If you face your enemy who has the same aim level as you straight on in a duel, the chance of winning might be a coin flip or 50-50. But if you can outsmart them and catch them mid-rotate or peek them when they're flashed or stunned, then the chance of you winning that fight is much more like an 80-20, or maybe even a 90-10 in your favor. This concept is applicable to every decision that we make in a round, and the team that makes a play that gives them an 80% chance of victory will more than likely beat the team that only has a 20% over the course of a whole match. So this is the most consistent way of winning because every decision is made with purpose and has objectively good principles behind it. So in the hypothetical I just stated, where every person has similar levels of aim, I'm sure that none of you at home really believe that this is practically true. After all, there's usually a Diamond Smurf Reyna in every ranked lobby, and all the gold players on my team definitely skipped their warm-up death matches. But in reality, this is much more true in higher ranks, and is definitely the truth in pro play. That's why you have aim gods like Tens even say that aim is only a small part of the game. When everyone has extremely good aim, the differentiator is no longer who hits their shot, but which team plays the smartest. And as each team is a congregation of 5 brilliant players who coordinate for a victory, the biggest endgame of Valorant is to approach the game like chess, and use information and game sense and team coordination to pull out the dub. That means that game sense is truly the most important part. Sure, aim matters, but it's a small drop in a very large ocean in how Valorant is meant to be played. So we gave the arguments for both sides of the discussion, but what's the actual answer? I think before we even started, everyone knew that there was no true 100% correct answer of whether aim is more important or game sense. But there are situations that can give one an edge over the other, and also others that offer a very different outlook. Let's consider these following situations and then try and reach a consensus. Something that I like to do with tactical shooters is compare them to real-world sports, and there's one in particular that I think works really well, and that's basketball. You could be the smartest basketball player in the world and always be in the right position, get the right pass, get the right play, but if you can't actually make your shots, then how much are you really doing for your team? There's a reason the basketball players train their shots so much, because they need it to become muscle memory. That's basically the same thing with aiming in Valorant. If you can out-aim your opponents, you can make a lot of plays that you wouldn't be able to if your aim was worse. And in addition to that, if you have worse aim, then that might affect how you improve your game sense, because fights that you normally should win seem to be bad fights that will change how you play. Obviously, also be careful for the opposite, as having good aim can give you bad habits as well, but to play Valorant, you first need to learn to aim. But as you learn the game, there does come a point where your aim is no longer holding you back, and you have the necessary tools to improve. So this is where we have to think about an economic law that's called the law of diminishing returns. Basically, the idea is that as you increase production of an item, at a certain point, you start to gain less of that item for every additional unit that produces it, if everything else is kept the same. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo, so for example, if you have one grill and one person using it, let's say that you can cook 30 burger patties an hour. If you increase to 2 grills, maybe this one person can multitask and cook 50 burger patties an hour. That's only 20 more than before as opposed to the 30 originally. Or let's say that you have 2 people cooking. Maybe you can cook 40 an hour due to the limited space on the grill. But if you have 2 people cooking on 2 grills, you'll have 60 an hour, or maybe even more if they coordinate well. The idea here is that it's more efficient for growth to be well-rounded on all fronts. So in the case of Valorant, if you focus too much on aim or game sense alone, you'll hit a plateau much faster unless you improve the other aspect. That's why you see people who are all aim, no brain, and constantly lose despite having that good aim. Or people who understand the game really well, but can't win a duel to save their life, so they cannot take advantage of their game sense. Unfortunately though, I will say this is often more of a problem for people who have good aim, because on one side, aim is the most accessible and defined skill to build, as stated before. Also, having really good aim and weak understanding of the game can lead to creating bad habits that will hold you back from improving as well. So in a way, being great at aiming can actually hold you back if you let the gap between game sense and aim become too big. In those cases, your game sense is what keeps you grounded and constantly thinking about the right way to play. If anything, the law of diminishing returns is secretly OP for anyone improving, because having the intention to build both together is an amazing way to constantly test your knowledge and become a more well-rounded player. However, I would say that since aim trading is more accessible and is more present in terms of how a player performs, the ratio is definitely not a 50-50, but that doesn't mean to go all in on one specific side either. We think that a 60-40 or even 70-30 split between focusing on aim and improving game sense is a good balance where you're consistently improving your mechanics, but also preventing yourself from creating bad habits, while also learning to take advantage of your good aim in smart ways. Growing as a player is never as black and white as train aim or train game sense, but rather a buildup of experience and consistent practice that takes you in the right direction. So if anything, a good mindset trumps both aim and game sense, but maybe we can cover that another day. Well, that's all that we have for you in this video. I really hope it helps you understand more about the topic of aim and game sense. And if you did learn anything, make sure to drop a like and also comment to let us know what you want to see from us in the future. Also, make sure to sub and hit that bell notification so you can stay up to date with all of the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. Once again, I'm Kangas. Best of luck on the grind, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.